1 killed. The dead was James Byron Dean, DOA, or dead on arrival at the hospital.
Hollywood promises eternal glamour, but fate often delivers endings stranger than fiction. Some of the biggest stars didn't fade with age. They were snatched in freak accidents that stunned the world. Imagine being at the top of your career, only to meet an end no scriptwriter could invent. From runaway cars to tragic sets, these stories reveal how fragile stardom really is. Which one will leave you gasping the loudest? Let's find out. Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee, son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, was only 28 when he landed the role of a lifetime in The Crow. The film was dark, atmospheric, and destined for cult status, but in 1993, its production turned fatal. During a key scene, a revolver loaded with blanks malfunctioned. Unknown to crew members, a fragment from a previous dummy round had been lodged in the barrel. When the blank was fired, it propelled the fragment like a live bullet, striking Lee. The eerie parallels with his father's sudden death amplified the shock. Brandon wasn't just another young star. He was supposed to carry on a legendary legacy. Instead, he became a symbol of Hollywood's failure to enforce strict safety. The incident forced sweeping reforms on how firearms are handled on film sets. The Crow was completed with stand-ins and early CGI, turning it into one of the first movies to resurrect its fallen star. For audiences, watching Brandon Lee was like seeing a ghost perform his own epitaph. His death wasn't just tragic, it was a chilling reminder that even controlled movie magic can turn fatal in an instant. Jayne Mansfield. Jayne Mansfield was more than a blonde bombshell. She was a master of spectacle. She rivaled Marilyn Monroe in the 1950s and 60s, filling theaters with her comedic timing and bold publicity stunts. But her life ended violently in 1967 on a Louisiana highway. Late at night, Mansfield's Buick Electra plowed into the rear of a tractor trailer concealed by insecticide fog. The adults in the front, including Jayne, were killed instantly. Miraculously, her 3 children, asleep in the back seat, survived. One of them was Mariska Hargitay, who would later star in Law and Order, SVU. The crash was so horrific that it forced a change in American road safety. Engineers developed the Mansfield bar, a metal guard added to the back of trucks to prevent cars from sliding underneath them. The device is still used today, literally carrying her name on highways across the nation. Mansfield's freak death blurred the line between Hollywood glamour and mortality. She had lived as the ultimate publicity queen, dazzling audiences with outrageous entrances. Yet her final exit was a grim reminder that fame doesn't shield anyone from fate. Even in death, Mansfield changed the landscape this time, America's highways. Paul Walker. For millions of fans, Paul Walker was synonymous with speed, charm, and the thrill of Fast and Furious. Off-screen, he was a dedicated humanitarian, running his charity reach-out worldwide. But in November 2013, the actor's life ended in an eerie reflection of his on-screen persona. Walker attended a charity event in California when he and his friend left in a Porsche Carrera GT. Minutes later, the car spun out of control at dangerous speed, striking a light pole before bursting into flames. Walker was only 40. The tragedy stunned the world. Production on Furious 7 halted indefinitely as his co-stars mourned. When the movie was eventually completed, his brothers stood in for his remaining scenes. The film's emotional ending, Walker's character driving into the horizon, became a global farewell, blurring the line between fiction and real life. Walker's death raised uncomfortable questions. How could someone so connected to car culture meet his end in such a painfully ironic way? His passing emphasized the razor-thin divide between Hollywood fantasy and reality. Paul Walker's legacy wasn't just cars and adrenaline, it was his kindness and humanity, qualities remembered long after his final, tragic ride. Carole Lombard. Carole Lombard was Hollywood's queen of screwball comedy, sharp, funny, and deeply loved. Married to Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, she was one half of Tinseltown's ultimate power couple. But in January 1942, her life ended in one of the most shocking celebrity accidents of the decade. Returning from a war bond rally in Indiana, Lombard boarded TWA Flight 3. The plane, flying at night across Nevada, slammed into Potosi Mountain. All 22 aboard died instantly. Lombard was just 33. The accident devastated Hollywood and the nation. President Franklin D. Roosevelt praised her patriotism, hailing her as one of the first major stars to dedicate her fame to America's wartime cause. For Clark Gable, the loss was unbearable. Grief-stricken, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces, throwing himself into combat duty. Lombard's freak accident became a symbol of sacrifice during World War II. She wasn't just a glamorous starlet, she became a patriot remembered for giving everything. Her sudden death also signaled a turning point for Hollywood itself, which realized that even its brightest jewels weren't untouchable. Carole Lombard's brilliance ended on a dark mountain, but her laughter still echoes through classic cinema. James Dean. James Dean was the embodiment of teenage rebellion. With just 3 films, Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and Giant, he became an icon of the restless post-war generation. But in 1955, at only 24, he met a fate as fast and furious as the characters he played. Dean had just bought a Porsche 550 Spider, nicknamed Little Bastard. Driving to a car race in Salinas, California, he collided head-on with another vehicle at an intersection. Dean was killed instantly, while his passenger survived with serious injuries. The crash stunned the nation. His career had barely begun, yet he was gone, leaving behind a legacy built as much on myth as on film. Whispers about the car being cursed only fueled the mystique. Parts of it were later linked to other deadly accidents. Dean's freak accident immortalized him. Unlike other stars who aged or faded, Dean was frozen in time, forever young, reckless, and tragic. His death didn't end his fame, it amplified it. The rebel who had warned teens against speeding in a PSA died doing exactly that, cementing him as the ultimate symbol of Hollywood's dangerous allure. Vic Morrow. Vic Morrow was a respected character actor, known for gritty roles in film and television, but his name will forever be linked to one of Hollywood's darkest nights, the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie in 1982. In a climactic scene, Morrow was to rescue 2 children during a mock Vietnam battle, with helicopters flying overhead and pyrotechnics exploding all around. But something went terribly wrong. A blast damaged the helicopter, which lost control and crashed directly into the actors below. Morrow and the 2 child performers were killed instantly. The accident sparked outrage and lawsuits. Investigations revealed the children were working illegally past permitted hours. Hollywood faced harsh scrutiny, and new safety standards for stunts, explosives, and child actors were created in the aftermath. Morrow's freak death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point. It exposed the dangers of prioritizing spectacle over safety and reminded audiences that even behind the scenes, Hollywood's pursuit of magic sometimes gambled with real lives. Vic Morrow's legacy is etched not only in his films, but in the industry reforms born from the horror of that night. Natalie Wood. Few stars embodied both glamour and vulnerability like Natalie Wood. From Miracle on 34th Street as a child to West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause. As an adult, she was a Hollywood treasure, but in 1981, her life ended on a yacht trip that remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Wood was sailing near California's Catalina Island with her husband, actor Robert Wagner, and co-star Christopher Walken. Sometime during the night, she vanished. Hours later, her body was discovered floating in the water. The official cause was listed as accidental drowning, but the unanswered questions refused to fade. Reports of arguments, the mystery of how she entered the water, and conflicting witness statements have fueled speculation for decades. The case has even been reopened multiple times as new testimonies surfaced. Her death rattled Hollywood. Wood was at the peak of her career, poised for new roles. Instead, she became a symbol of unanswered questions. Natalie Wood's freak end wasn't just tragic, it left a chilling absence, a star forever lost to the waves, her story unfinished and forever debated. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power was the swashbuckling hero of Hollywood's golden age. From the Mark of Zorro to Captain from Castile, he defined dashing charisma for a generation of moviegoers. But in 1958, during the filming of Solomon and Sheba in Madrid, his career ended mid-sword fight. While filming an intense duel scene, Power suddenly collapsed. He had suffered a massive heart attack at just 44 years old. Crew members rushed to his side, but he was gone before reaching the hospital. Producers replaced him with Yul Brynner, but the shadow of Power's final moments haunted the production. For audiences, the tragedy carried an eerie irony. Hollywood's most iconic swordsman felled not by an enemy, but by fate, right in the middle of a fight sequence. Fans were devastated. Power wasn't just another matinee idol. He represented vitality and old Hollywood grandeur. To see him cut down in action was a cruel reminder that even the strongest legends are mortal. Tyrone Power's death became one of Hollywood's eeriest accidents. A duel that was never finished. A hero gone mid-performance. Clark Gable. Clark Gable, forever remembered as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, was the king of Hollywood. His rugged masculinity and charm made him the quintessential leading man. But in 1960, at 59, he faced his final curtain call, brought on, ironically, by his own determination to prove he still had it. While filming The Misfits alongside Marilyn Monroe and Montgomery Clift, Gable insisted on doing his own grueling stunts. Under the scorching Nevada desert sun, he chased and roped wild horses on camera. Soon after filming wrapped, he suffered a massive heart attack. 10 days later, the king was gone. The timing was almost cinematic. The Misfits would become not only Gable's swan song, but also Monroe's last completed film. Audiences watching the movie years later saw it differently. Less as entertainment, more as prophecy. For fans, Gable's freak passing symbolized the cost of pride and the toll of demanding shoots. The king of Hollywood, who had ruled for 3 decades, bowed out on his own terms, stubborn, masculine, and still in the saddle. His death left a void no actor could ever truly fill. Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly's story was a real-life fairy tale. The Oscar-winning actress left Hollywood at the height of her career to marry Prince Rainier III of Monaco, transforming into Princess Grace. But in 1982, the storybook dream ended in a freak accident that shocked both Hollywood and royalty. While driving with her daughter near the winding cliffs of Monaco, Grace suffered a stroke at the wheel. Her Rover veered off the mountain road, tumbling down a steep embankment. She never regained consciousness. She was just 52. The tragedy blurred fantasy and reality. To millions, Grace Kelly wasn't just an actress, she was elegance personified, a woman who had seemingly escaped the volatility of Hollywood for a royal life of security. Yet her final moment was violently ordinary, a car crash on a treacherous road. The world mourned deeply. Both Hollywood and Monaco paid tribute, and her funeral drew dignitaries from across the globe. Even today, the cliffside accident feels surreal, like a cruel twist in a fairy tale that should have ended happily ever after. Grace Kelly's legacy endures, graceful, untouchable, and forever gone too soon. John Eric Hexum. John Eric Hexum was a rising TV star in the 1980s, known for his good looks and charm on the series Cover Up. But in 1984, during a break in filming, frustration and a moment of thoughtless humor turned deadly. To lighten the mood after production delays, Hexum picked up a prop revolver loaded with blanks. Jokingly, He put it to his temple and pulled the trigger. What he didn't realize was that even blanks can be dangerous. The force of the blast fractured his skull, causing massive brain injuries. He was just 26 when he passed away. The accident stunned Hollywood. A young actor at the cusp of stardom had been felled not by a high-speed crash or risky stunt, but by a careless moment on set. His death became a permanent cautionary tale in Hollywood about the dangers of prop weapons and the thin line between acting and tragedy. For fans, it was a cruel reminder that in an industry built on illusions, even jokes can turn fatal. Hexum's freak death left an entire generation wondering what career heights he might have reached. Martha Mansfield. In 1923, Martha Mansfield was a rising silent film actress cast in The Warrens of Virginia, a Civil War drama. She was only 24 and poised for stardom. But one freak accident ended her career before it began. During a break in filming, Mansfield stepped away from set, still wearing her elaborate hoop-skirt costume. Someone nearby carelessly tossed a lit match, which landed on her gown. The fabric, made of highly flammable material, went up in flames instantly. Crew members rushed to help, managing to tear away parts of the costume, but it was too late. Mansfield suffered fatal burns and died the following day. The tragedy was a wake-up call for Hollywood. Studios began rethinking costume safety and the use of fire on set, realizing that cinematic spectacle could become lethal in seconds. Fans were horrified. Unlike other stars who died after long careers, Mansfield was robbed before reaching her prime. Her freak accident became one of the earliest examples of Hollywood's dangerous carelessness. Today, she's remembered less for her films and more for the shocking way she was taken, proving even in its infancy, Hollywood demanded lives for its art. Ernie Kovacs. Ernie Kovacs was a comic innovator, a television pioneer whose surreal sketches in the 1950s influenced everyone from Monty Python to David Letterman. Witty, unpredictable, and beloved by audiences, Kovacs was just beginning to make his mark in film as well. But in January 1962, his story ended suddenly in a freak Los Angeles car crash. Driving home after a Hollywood party on a rainy night, Kovacs lost control of his Chevrolet Corvair on a slick curve. The car skidded sideways and slammed into a utility pole. He was killed instantly at just 42. Fans were devastated. Here was a man who had reshaped television comedy, suddenly silenced not by scandal or illness, but by a patch of wet asphalt. His funeral drew Hollywood's biggest names, including Frank Sinatra, Jack Lemmon, and Edie Adams, his widow. The irony was bitter. A man who spent his life making people laugh was undone by something as random as rain on pavement. Kovacs' freak death froze him as one of comedy's great what-ifs. How much further might he have pushed television if not for that skid? Leslie Howard, best remembered as Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind. Leslie Howard was one of Hollywood's most refined leading men. But in 1943, during World War II, his life ended in one of Hollywood's strangest and most tragic accidents. Howard boarded a civilian airliner in Portugal bound for England. Over the Bay of Biscay, the plane was attacked by German fighter aircraft. Mistaken for a military transport, it was shot down. Everyone on board, including Howard, perished. The news stunned the world. Howard wasn't a soldier. He was a civilian artist. His films had embodied romance, wit, and dignity, yet he became an accidental casualty of war. Rumors circulated that German intelligence believed Winston Churchill might have been on the plane, making Howard's death a grim case of mistaken identity. Whatever the truth, his passing robbed cinema of one of its most intelligent and graceful performers. Howard's freak death was a reminder that even stars, seemingly shielded by fame, could be swept away by global conflict. He left behind a body of work that still endures, and a story that remains one of Hollywood's great wartime tragedies. Anton Yelchin. Anton Yelchin was one of Hollywood's brightest young actors, winning fans in indie dramas and as Chekhov in the Star Trek reboot. His future seemed limitless, until June 2016, when a bizarre accident at his own home ended his life at just 27. After parking his SUV, Yelchin walked down his driveway toward his security gate. Due to a defect in the vehicle's gear shift, the car rolled backward silently. Trapped against a brick pillar and the gate, he was crushed before anyone could intervene. The freak nature of the accident horrified Hollywood. Automakers recalled thousands of vehicles, but the damage was done. A star who should have had decades of roles ahead of him was gone in a moment of cruel chance. For fans, Yelchin's death symbolized wasted potential. He had the kind of range that promised both blockbusters and award-winning dramas. Instead, his career ended in a driveway, undone by machinery meant to serve him. Anton Yelchin's freak accident remains one of the most chilling Hollywood tragedies of the 21st century. Roy Kinnear. Roy Kinnear was a beloved character actor, known for roles in Willy Wonka and The Chocolate Factory and Help. He wasn't a headline-grabbing star, but he had a warmth that made audiences instantly trust him. In 1988, during filming of The Return of the Musketeers in Spain, a routine stunt went fatally wrong. Kinnear was asked to ride a horse across a cobblestone street. The horse slipped, throwing him violently to the ground. He broke his pelvis and was rushed to the hospital. Hours later, he suffered a fatal heart attack. He was 54. The tragedy devastated the film's cast and crew. Director Richard Lester, a longtime friend, was so shaken that he retired from filmmaking altogether. The incident underscored the hidden dangers of stunts that might seem minor compared to high-octane action sequences. Kinnear's freak passing proved that even small missteps can take great talents. Fans still remember him fondly, but always with a pang that his story ended in such a sudden, senseless way. Paul Mantz. Paul Mantz wasn't a household name, but in Hollywood, he was a legend, the stunt pilot behind some of the most breathtaking aerial sequences in movie history. If the skies looked dangerous on film, Mantz was usually the man flying them. But in 1965, his career and his life ended in a freak accident while filming The Flight of the Phoenix. The movie called for Mantz to perform a risky stunt, flying a cobbled-together plane designed to look like it had been rebuilt after a desert crash. During the maneuver, the aircraft broke apart mid-air, slamming into the ground. Mantz was killed instantly, and the scene turned into one of Hollywood's most haunting real-life disasters. His death shocked the industry. Mantz had performed countless death-defying stunts for decades, often walking away without a scratch. To see him undone by a single malfunction seemed almost cruelly ironic. The tragedy forced studios to reassess how far they pushed stunt performers in pursuit of spectacle. For audiences, Mantz became an unsung hero whose final act was both his most daring and his most tragic. Linda Darnell. Linda Darnell was one of Hollywood's most glamorous leading ladies of the 1940s, remembered for Forever Amber and A Letter to Three Wives. But in April 1965, her life ended in a freak accident at just 41 years old. While staying at a friend's house outside Chicago, a fire broke out late at night. Investigators later believed a careless cigarette may have sparked the blaze. Darnell, trapped on an upper floor, was unable to escape. Though others made it out, she was fatally burned before rescuers could reach her. Her sudden death horrified fans. Once billed as one of Hollywood's most beautiful stars, Darnell had struggled in later years, but no one expected her story to close in such a tragic, fiery end. She became one of the few Golden Age actresses whose legacy was forever tied to an accidental blaze. For Hollywood, Darnell's passing was a cruel reminder that glamour couldn't protect anyone from freak misfortune. She was taken not by scandal, not by time, but by something as ordinary and deadly as a flame in the dark. Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison was known for his wild, screaming comedy routines and his transition from preacher to stand-up star. By the early 1990s, he had made the leap into acting, appearing in Back to School and headlining his own specials. But in April 1992, at just 38, his life ended in a freak car crash in the California desert. Kinison was driving to a gig in Nevada when a teenage driver, reportedly under the influence, swerved into his lane and struck him head-on. At first, Kinison appeared only shaken, even telling bystanders he didn't need medical attention. But moments later, he suddenly collapsed and never regained consciousness. The bizarre nature of the accident stunned fans. Here was a man who lived larger than life, cut down not in a fiery crash but in a freak sequence where survival turned to tragedy within minutes. Kinnison's death silenced one of comedy's rawest voices and left Hollywood reeling. His accident proved how fast fortunes change, one moment laughing on the road, the next gone forever. From prop guns to runaway cars, from rain-slick roads to mountainsides in the dark, these stars remind us that Hollywood is never immune to fate's cruel twists. Some were legends already. Others were rising talents whose futures were stolen in an instant. Which of these stories shook you the most? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread these stories. Because in Hollywood, accidents don't just happen, they become legends of their own,